And if we look at this, if you look at this carefully, what you can see is that it is the hippopotamus skull. The hippopotamus able to stick its eyes out of the water while keeping its head in a flat plane, and then it can stick its nose out of the water as well. So quite interesting that we do have this hippopotamus skull, except that it isn't a hippopotamus skull at all. It is a warthog skull. And the reason I say it's a hippopotamus skull is that that's exactly what I thought it was the first time I saw it out here. And it was during a fireside chat that we had in the morning, because we had the vehicles weren't working at all. So Brent and I did a lengthy section by the fire in the morning. And I went into this long treatise of how the hippo skull is designed so that it can smell and see and hear out of the water without sticking any of the rest of its body out the water. And Brent looked at me and he said, "You are joking, aren't you?" I said, "No, I'm not joking at all." And then I looked and I realized that I'd made a very obvious and stupid mistake in my attempt to just have something to say, and that was in fact a warthog skull, and I had to embarrassedly retract everything I've said. The hippo skull, not entirely dissimilarly shaped to this, I suppose, but probably an adult one about that big. So I'm afraid we don't have one in here to give a very long answer to a very short question, Dan. Let's put this back over here. So that's the brain discussion size, at least the brain discussion size. The brain size discussion. There we go. Excellent. And it is a fascinating one, and it's one that we don't really understand fully, I don't really think we understand how to define intelligence. We often define intelligence by the size of the brain, but what is intelligent? A lion, although inescapably poor at calculus and apparently almost utterly untrainable as a domestic animal, is perfectly intelligent for what it has to do. Their life of violence and general theft and pillage, they're perfectly equipped to do, and their brains are large enough for that. Hyena, slightly different. It's very interesting, I think. Winter Prism, you say, do I think animals use more of their brains than humans? I think this is coming from the slightly apocryphal story that human beings only use 10% or something of their brain power. Now, I have read about this, and it's not really that we only use, small pieces of our brain. I think it's that most of our brains are not engaged all the time. And I imagine that it's not, I don't know, do I think that it's the same for animals out here? Winter Prism, it could be. It could be the same. I suspect when they're at rest, they aren't using their brains particularly. But there's a lot more autonomic or a lot more, what's the word I'm using? Instinctive behavior involved in what animals do. And so I think you'll find that those sort of hardwired instinctive things that animals do out here probably take up quite a lot of their brain usage. Our brains are extremely flexible. They're extremely malleable. They're able to do things and plan and problem solve in the way that many other brains aren't. So perhaps ours do get used a bit more, at least a bit less, all the time than something like a monkey, but I'm really not sure about that. Let's head back to Byron and his hippopotami while I contemplate the size of brains, and let's ask Byron how big he thinks a hippopotamus's brain is.
James, good question, James. Now, a hippopotamus brain, now I'm trying to think. I think a hippo brain, if I'm not mistaken, is about this size. Craig? I think a hippo brain is about that size, if I'm not mistaken. Not very large. Maybe. Yeah, I think it's only about that size. So I don't know. Shall we say that? I mean, James, I would say maybe the size of an apple or 2 apples, perhaps. Let's see what James says a little bit later. But that would be my guess, James. I'm not entirely sure. Again, I've not done or studied much anatomy of these animals, only behavior. It's still raining and it's quite cold. It's very chilly. We're sitting up on this damn wall at the moment. These covers are up because the wind's blowing this rain into us. But luckily we seem to be okay. I think we'll survive. We're just waiting. The ladies in the FC said they were going to bring us coffee and biscuits to keep us warm. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Have a look at it. Have a look at. There's some interaction going on. And there's a youngster. Look at that little hippo. Can you see there? In the middle of the frame? That's a very, very young hippo. Wonderful. Little baby. I mean, look, it looks like it's almost the size of that adult head behind it. Very small hippo. I'm sure you can all hear the rain on the roof. Raindrops keep falling on my head. I've been told I'm not allowed to sing, but I can't help it sometimes. James keeps asking me if I'll do a duet with him, but I'm not so sure. It was wonderful seeing that green-backed heron earlier. It moved off, unfortunately, but that was a nice surprise. A lot of red-billed buffalo weavers around. You can see the nest in the background there. That's one of the red-billed buffalo weaver nests. Just over there. And there are plenty of Egyptian geese around at the moment. Just dotted all over the show. Some of them are sitting on the dam wall not far from us. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see them at the moment. But they just... Yeah, I don't know if they're enjoying the rain either. But this is... rain in the bush is always wonderful. Sandy, you want to know what those little birds were that we saw... at Chitwa Dam last time that I got so excited about? I'm going to show you quickly, Sandy. They were called collared pratincoles. Now, let me show you what they look like, and I'll show you how to spell that. That is, so it's a Pratincole, pratincole. Now, have a look over here. Let me just show you this. And that's the the book description of it, and that's what they look like. So that's what they were that we saw here, and I was very excited about seeing them because it was the first time I've seen them. And so they are beautiful. I'm just going to read something to you quickly that I found interesting because of the status. So the status is generally uncommon breeding intra-African migrants, so present here from July through to February, but locally common at a few breeding sites. But they're not birds that we see very often at all. And I know a lot of guides get very excited when they do see them. And as I said, in all my time guiding, this is the first time that I've seen the pratincole. So it was a really wonderful surprise for me. I've been in areas that they do occur, but just never seen them. That happens sometimes with birding. So it was really wonderful to see them. Haven't seen them again, but I wonder if this weather hasn't got something to do with it. I'm sure we'll see them around the Chitwa Dam again at some point. Jess, I wouldn't go as far as saying the hippo are the most dangerous animals on earth. However, they are very potentially dangerous. I say potentially dangerous because animals are only dangerous when they feel threatened. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the only animals that would view us as potential food and actually hunt us would be crocodiles and polar bears, if I'm not mistaken. I think I read that somewhere. I stand to correction, and if anybody else has information on that, please let me know. But I think so. But the hippopotamus, now, why they have that bad reputation of being so dangerous, and they are. Let's make no mistake, they are dangerous. But again, if they feel threatened, what happens is, in parts of Africa, people living in rural areas will go down to rivers because it's a source of food. They can go and fish and get food for themselves, and also they go down and they wash, so they're always around rivers. But because in rural Africa you have wildlife living everywhere, the hippo and crocodiles are always in those waters. So the people have to be very careful, because if they get too close to the rivers or the dams and in the way of the hippo will attack out of pure instinct and to protect themselves. Now, they've got huge mouths and very, very large teeth. One bite from a hippo can easily kill a person. So that is why people get attacked so often, and why hippo are responsible for so many attacks, is because of the amount of people living close to waterholes and potentially going on boats, and that small flimsy boats that hippo are able to tip over very easily. The same with crocodiles. Crocodiles are responsible for even more deaths because they just eat the people. You don't necessarily find the remains. So it's not a nice story, but it is true. Taylor's got that lion calling. Go there quickly.
Look at this. He's roaring. One more? Yes, good boy. Wasn't that perfect timing? He's been fast asleep this entire time in the pouring rain. You can see how wet his back is now. And he's practicing some grooming, getting himself nice and clean. And I think it must be nice to be, well, covered in a bit of rain when this happens. I think it makes the grooming process a lot easier. I wonder if he's going to get up and move now, because this rain is really coming down. You might even hear the pitter-patter on the roof. I'm going to sneeze as well. Goodness gracious! Woo! That was a nice shake of the mane as well. You saw all the water splashing off of him, but he's pretty soaked now. And at one point, just as we arrived back here, because we had no luck, we checked the northern boundary, nothing has come across just yet. And it was quite interesting, because he was sitting, and it's sort of like he had a middle path, and it looked like a really bad high school haircut, or actually maybe even younger than that, maybe junior school, when his mother still used to brush his hair. You know, you always get those awkward looks. And I can't move right now, because otherwise we are going to get absolutely soaked. I've got my bum facing the rain. There we go. Thank you, big boy. But it seems as though he's shagged his hair up a little bit, like he put his fingers through his hair and scruffed it up, because it was very embarrassing just a moment ago. Hello, boy. You're not having a great hair day today, are you? And we're going to try and stick with him as long as we can. Although he doesn't look like he's going anywhere just yet. He's having a bit of a scratch. But it's nice to see he's looking more and more beautiful every time I see him, I must say. I know I'm contradicting myself, because I said he had a face that only a mother could love this morning. But at least he's looking a little bit more handsome with his mane coming out. You can see it's starting to grow now, right, coming over the shoulders, and it's still going to get thicker than that. But he hasn't got a massive mane. I mean, if you look at Nena and Nsuku, and we've seen them over the last couple of days, they almost look like they've stuck their tails into an electric plug, and well, into the socket, and they've got a bit of an electrocution, because their mane stands out so much more, whereas his seems to be a little bit sort of scruffy. He's still itching, and I can just see his tongue popping out of his mouth every now and then. He's enjoying himself. I always love it when they scratch themselves and they find the right spot and they sort of stick their tongues out all the time. Now, Amber, you were wondering if that call that Tinyo has just done, if it was him looking for other lions or if it was a warning call. I think he's looking for the rest of the pride, either the Nkuhumas or he's looking for his brothers. I think he'll be quite happy to find any of them, but I'm sure his brother... Oh, here he goes again. No, he stopped. We'll quickly try and catch up with them. I hope he doesn't go off-roading today, because we're going to find ourselves in quite a bit of trouble. This roof does not allow for us to go through drainage systems, and also I think the ground is going to get a little bit too wet, so we won't do too much off-roading today. It's been a nice soaking rain. As you can see, we're going to try and drive along very slowly, but he's marking his territory, and now he looks like he's about to take a shortcut. Don't go too far. So sorry, Amber, I think he, like I said, basically just to recap on your question, I think he is just, we have to turn the vehicle, off he goes onto an animal pathway. He's just looking for somebody. And there were a lot of lions responding. There were some coming from the west, there were definitely lions coming from the north. So whoever he's going to find, I'm not sure, but he seems to have chosen to go a little bit more west. Right, let's see if we can zip around. There's a big animal pathway, so I think he might jump back on the road again. It sort of leads him back towards the road. But we're quite limited to how we're going to view this lion, so we'll have to do a lot of repositioning. Is basically, we've got the canvas sides down at the back and on either side. So Brian is sitting in the darkness at the moment, and then we've just got this view. So we're going to have to face him front on every time we want to have a look at him. There he goes again. And hopefully my big old head won't get in the way. Under a little shrub. And we'll just keep a little distance away from us. Oh, we will keep a distance away from him, not us, sorry. There we go. You can see he's picking up the pace now as he goes downhill. Oh, very squeaky this morning. And up he goes, and he moves quickly. I don't think even we realize how fast lions can actually travel, because I'm sure he's walking at a pace much quicker than what I can go. Maybe Brian, you might be able to keep up with him. I reckon, probably because you've got such long legs and you're so tall. But for me, I'd have to be sort of jogging on the spot to keep up with that. Whee, where did you go? Oh, still on the road. That's good news for us. I wonder where he's going to take us. It's so nice. I love doing this, following animals to see where we're going to end up. He looks like he's going to go straight towards, if he carries on here though, straight towards the dam. Now you can see that he's sticking to a road which was created by us, and it's quite normal to see animals walking on roads. And Ellen from Arkansas, you're wondering exactly that. Do animals prefer to walk on roads, our roads, when it's raining? I suppose it doesn't really matter. However, most animals would prefer to walk on our big roads. You can actually hear the drongos now alarming. They were shouting at this lion, but now they've stopped. He's got a big mane. It's difficult to walk now, especially on the normal animal pathways, because all the trees and shrubs have grown quite a bit So our pathways are still nice and clear because we're constantly doing bush clearing to prevent people, and obviously the guests driving around on open vehicles. You wouldn't want a thorn tree to hit you across the face. And unfortunately, the rest of the gang, the rest of the animals, when I say that, have to rely on the elephants doing a lot of bush clearing along their pathways. There we go, marking again. So I think that as he's marking, and he is looking for one of his brothers, or maybe the Nkuhuma Pride, like I said, I think it's also a bit of a territorial call that he's doing. He's just announcing himself, just to let everybody else know that, of course, he is in the area. But I'm so happy that he has decided to walk along our roads. Wow, goodness, he's going so quick. And luckily we've got the rain coming behind us as well. I'm very happy for that, because it would have been a nightmare if the rain was coming in the opposite direction. So we're going to stick with this line to see where he's going to take us. And well, for now I'm going to send you across to James in the tent, and I wonder what he's going to show you next.
Well, we're going to tell you something rather than show you something initially. The first thing to tell you is that a mouse has a larger brain-to-body ratio than us. In other words, a mouse's brain is proportionately larger than yours. A mouse is cleverer than you are, and me. Now, Stef is going to try and he's joined us in the tent, he's going to try and give us some kind of representation, diagrammatically, of the different animals that we've looked at and the sizes of their brains. And I'm quite interested in what it's going to look at. He gave me some complicated explanation as I was holding the cokies, and I said, I think you better do this, which I think is the right course of action. Then we were trying to find an arachnid because somebody wanted to see an arachnid under the microscope, and that was it was MMG photography. MMG. We haven't managed to find one. We did look a lot for an arachnid. There is an arachnid underneath here, however. I just can't find it, and I'll tell you how I know that there's an arachnid here. There we are. Can you see the silk? Now that silk indicates to me that there is some form of arachnid or spider in here. Why do we say the word arachnid as opposed to arachnid? I'm afraid it's a result of Brent Leo Smith. He says arachnid, and I'm not sure if he's being serious or not, but I just find it now, I'm unable to say it any other way. So let's look a little bit deeper into the flower there and see if we can't find a lurking arachnid. Now, what these arachnids will do, and what we were looking for as soon as we saw MMG Photography's question, is that they will make themselves these little waterproof shelters inside flowers and inside grass stalks, and then they'll sit inside them. But I don't see the maker of this particular one. We'll try and zoom in a little bit. This is going to get blurry briefly. Whoopsie. And there we are. And if you'd like to take a screenshot of the blurred safaris, you can hashtag blurry safaris and tag Eggsy. Eggsy started a whole trend called blurry safaris. I don't think it's a very good trend myself. I think that might be the arachnid under there. Okay, let's come back to me and let's try and turn this thing over. I don't want to destroy his home, so I'm not going to pull it apart, but if we change the angle slightly, we might be able to see. I think there may be something in there. Here we go. Back again. It's very nice to have lions roaring in the day, isn't it? Especially on a day like this when things do threaten to be a little bit deathly if you don't have a settled sighting. This amount of rain. No, I don't think we're going to see this. Oh. No. David, I don't see an arachnid there at all, do you?
No.
Very little in the way of arachnid activity. Hang on, there it is. There's movement. Can you see the movement? Look at that movement. Is that a creature or is it just the plant shifting? This is quite exciting. Let's go in a bit closer. Hashtag blurry safaris. Hold on, everyone. It's going to get blurry. That's not a little spider, is it? No, I think it's just a piece of the plant that's letting go of itself. I wish you could have heard the disappointed sort of, okay, from the final control, as if to say, how pathetic, could you not have done better? I will try and do better next time. I do apologize profusely to all concerned. Stef, how are we looking there?
Good. There's a few statistics that I need before
right.
we go into
What statistics would you like?
We can do this together, if you like. First one is, let me just explain my diagram and the fact that I have no artistic talent whatsoever. So in your mind, please see all, these are cups filled with water and an orange dye.
Fair enough.
They're supposed to be the same size, so that they're even representative, and then I them human or man, whale and mouse. And
brilliant.
That hopefully is giving us
an idea
of what I'm trying to show you here. So the relative intelligence is quite difficult to portray, even though I felt like I understood it quite well. But basically what it is, it's a brain mass to body weight ratio. And if we take brain mass to body weight as a ratio, a mouse has relatively higher, as a lower ratio than what we have. In other words, its brain weight is closer to its total body mass, and therefore it is should be relatively more intelligent than a whale or a human. With a human coming a close second and a whale coming a close third. But obviously total brain mass, in other words, the total weight of a brain, the volume of a brain also has a lot to do with intelligence. And it's why a mouse or an ant or a spider isn't more intelligent than a human, and the fact that brain mass, the actual total size of the brain, is also a function of intelligence. And so it's two things. It's how close your brain weight is to your total body mass, and obviously the smaller that ratio, the more intelligent you are, because you've got a bigger brain for body mass. And then it's the total weight of your brain, the size of your brain. The heavier your brain, the relatively more intelligent you are. So it's two different coefficients there. And well, obviously humans have the best of it all, in that we have a very heavy brain. We're looking at a 2 to a 3 kilogram brain, which is probably about a 5 to a 6 pound brain, and that is in a body that weighs 150 pounds or so, and that together makes us the most intelligent species on the planet. As well as and because of that, we've developed these massively social structures. James mentioned a little bit earlier that the social structure evolved with the increasing brain. I don't know enough about the evolution of the brain to actually add much comment there, except that it sounds 100% right. I mean, I would imagine the most complex societies, whether it's insect or mammal, reptile, whatever the case may be, generally have much bigger brains than what solitary animals do. So that's basically what I have to say about that on the topic of relative intelligence.
Well, Larry's just asked a rather interesting question about, do I think that humans act on instinct? And of course, this is one of my very favorite subjects in all the world, the nature versus nurture debate, and how much of what we do is what we've learned and how much of what we do is based on our genetics. I think we do a huge amount on instinct, Larry. I think a vast amount of what we do is coded into our genetic makeup. And the most, for me, the most quintessential way to describe the nature versus nurture debate is language. Human beings are programmed for language, but they're programmed not to a specific language. So a child, for example, will learn to speak in whatever environment it is. If you take a child born in Greenland and you put it with a Zulu family, it will learn to speak Zulu just as quickly as it would learn to speak whatever language they speak in Greenland. What do they speak in Greenland? Greenlandish.
Yes.
Yes, Greenlandish. So it's wired into us to learn language. What language you learn comes from the environment. So that's nature, which is the hard wiring of language into the body. That's instinct, versus nurture, which is the environment or the teaching that you receive, and you absorb that from your environment. Now, there are lots and lots of different parts of our makeup, of our social makeup, of our physical makeup, that are very much in the same way, half sort of coded into our genetic makeup and then molded by our environment. I'm trying to think of another one. I can't think of another one offhand, but that's a really nice descriptor of the nature versus nurture debate. And there are lots and lots of different instincts that human beings have, and I think separating out what is nature and what's nurture is crucially important to our understanding of the human psyche, especially when we look at things like criminality in humans, psychology in humans, and how much can be separated into what we've learned and what is just inescapable for us as human beings, and how much of what our instincts, or the instincts that we have, can be tempered sometimes. While we ponder on these profundities, let us head across to Byron at Chitwa Dam.
Now, we've got another beautiful bird which has joined us at the dam. Have a look, the African fish eagle. Definitely one of my favorite birds. But just, I think it's trying to stay warm in this rain. It's been raining quite heavily now for a bit. More where we are. Don't know if Taylor got very wet. She was with that lion. I'm not sure how bad the rain. Have a look at the crocodile quickly. Have a look at the crocodile. Sorry, I'm just seeing him moving. There he goes. And off he goes into the water. Even he's had enough of the rain. Cool, at least we got to see him moving. That's very nice. I'll watch him go. I wonder where he is going to go. Probably just going to stay in the water a little bit. Kirsten was just telling me that Taylor did get soaking. There's also, there's a lot of rain at the moment. The crocodiles and the hippo tolerate each other because they live in the same habitat. They need to. So they basically need to coexist in waterholes, riverbeds, or in rivers, dams. And the hippo and the crocodile generally just stay out of each other's way. I think they've got a mutual respect. But if anything, a hippo can cause serious damage to a crocodile. But that's a huge crocodile. Look at that. He's massive. Yeah. I would not like to go swimming in there. That's for sure. And it's a very big crocodile. But as I was saying, Lynn, they coexist, they stay out of each other's way. But if anything, a hippo can cause serious damage to a crocodile because of those big mouths, those very large teeth. They're very powerful animals. So they tolerate each other and they just stay out of each other's way. And there he goes. I'm not sure where he's going. He's maybe just going into the shallow water off to the left. And I'm assuming it's shallow. I don't know if it is. There goes the fish eagle. Where is he going? Oh, well done, Craig. Wouldn't it be amazing if we saw a fish eagle fishing? Watch. He might just perch up in the dead tree there. There he sits. I'm going to keep a close eye on him, and if I see him take off again, I'll let Craig know, and we'll see if we get him fishing. But I wonder how, and I don't know. I'm just thinking if this rain affects the fishing of the fish eagle, because obviously it distorts the water a little bit. So does that make it harder for the fish eagle to pick up movement of fish on the water, on the surface of the water? because that's usually what they look out for. But their eyesight is so good, so I wonder, I'm sure they probably would still be able to fish. I've only ever seen fish eagles fishing properly once before, where there was a pair of them and they were swooping down over the water and trying to catch fish, and they both managed to catch a fish, which was incredible to see, because you do need to have a lot of patience if you're watching fish eagles to hopefully see them fishing. Sweet history, you want to know what type of fish there are in the dam. Well, in a dam like this, there are most likely freshwater tilapia and also catfish, or we call them barbel, but the catfish, probably a lot of catfish in here, and that's usually what the fish eagles catch. Those two species, or those two types of fish in these areas at least. It looks like the rain has subsided a little bit. Thank goodness. I was about to get out the snorkel and the fins just in case we had to move to a water-based safari. Probably hear the wind too, very windy. And fish eagle just changed positions. He just moved over to another tree. Further left. It's out in the open. But nowhere closer to the dam, unfortunately. So it doesn't look like... I think he's just trying to possibly dry out a little bit because of all this rain. There he is. See, shaking his tail feathers. Trying to get some of the water off of him. Or her. I'm not sure if it's a male or female. Been really nice sitting here though. I must be honest, I enjoy sitting at dams because there's always something going on, and this dam is or has got so much to offer. There's I mean, all the hippo and the crocodiles and the bird life around here, it's fantastic. And even though we haven't seen wildlife come down to drink, you never know. Something could pop out at any stage, but I think it's wonderful just to sit and be patient and enjoy what's going on around us. And we've seen so much already. We saw that green-backed heron fishing earlier. We saw the crocodile out the water and then move back into the water. The fish eagles, the Egyptian geese. The Pratincoles are actually here. Now, was it Lynn or those are the geese a little bit further right? Sandy, there we go. They're the Pratincoles. And an African Jacana, look at that. That beautiful brown bird with the white neck and head. That is the African Jacana. And then all those other little birds around it are the collared Pratincoles. But those have not quite reached adult plumage just yet. I showed you that picture of that Pratincole earlier. Very beautiful birds, but that is them. There's a little flock of them that flew in while we were sitting here. Look at the beautiful African Jacana. That's also wonderful to see. So an abundance of bird life. I saw a 3-banded plover earlier too, walking around. I'm sure there's a few of them here. Blacksmith lapwings. Amber, you want to know how do we tell the gender of birds? Now, Amber, Sorry, I'm just trying to cover up. There's a bit of a cold breeze coming in through here. So, Amber, most bird species, the males are actually more colourful than the females, which is interesting. So the males are more attractive than the females, but some birds it is a bit difficult, and there isn't any sexual dimorphism. They do look similar, but most of the time the males are more colourful than the females. And I'm trying to think of an example quickly off the top of my head that I can show you. It's so funny. A weaver. I think some of the weaver birds. I'm just having a look here because I think some of the mast weavers. There we go. And you see that. But just a quick example, Amber, if you have a look here, this is a mast weaver, which we do see in these areas. But have a look, that's the male with that beautiful black head, and that's the female. So you see that look very, very different. That's just one example. But there are a number of species where the males look very different to the females, more colourful, more vibrant. But the reason is to attract the female. See, we do a lot. As males, we do so much to try and attract the attention of females. Now the rain has just started again. But speaking about the difference between males and females, that African Jacana has got a very interesting story. The African Jacana, in fact, is polyandrous. Now, I have a look there. I wonder if that's a male and female pair. I'm not sure. Now, polyandrous means the female actually, and then they go, but the female has more than one male mate. So she will go off, she will go off, mate with a few different males, lay eggs, and the males actually sit on the nest and incubate the eggs. Isn't that interesting? So that's different with the African Jacana. And also, the largest feet in proportion to their body size than any other bird in Africa. They've got these incredibly large feet, and that helps them walk across lilies and that over dams or reeds, so that they can spread their weight evenly over a large surface area. Listen to the hippo. Those are the Egyptian geese walking there. Some youngsters. Now, the rain has got a little too much for Stef, so he's decided to go and join James Picasso in the tent. I wonder if they've got a cup of coffee.
We did have a cup of coffee. My coffee is finished, unfortunately, but the microscope seems to have ceased to function. That's the problem. We'll have to sort that out shortly. Now, let us go across to an extremely exciting scene at the dam cam. There it is, where Byron had, well, dozens of Egyptian geese. We've got one, and it is swimming in a pond. It looks like a very sort of almost English country scene, that I feel, with one lonely duck swimming across a pond. It doesn't look like there are lions and leopards and elephants and hippopotami and buffalo anywhere in sight, does it? Mr. Zoomy, Marco, if you're still on, are you able to zoom in on our little Egyptian goose? And let us ponder, while we do that, why it is that the Egyptian geese of Djuma seem to be so much less successful than the Egyptian geese of Chitwa. The pair at Twin Dams had 7 goslings about 4 weeks ago. They lasted 3 days. The 2 pairs at Bivelshoek Dam, they are hopeless at raising chicks. They didn't manage to raise 1 last year, and yet we have 2 or 3 pairs at the Chitwa Dam, and all of them raising dozens of little babies. Well done, Marco. Thank you very much. There we are. We now have a beautiful view of this lonely Egyptian goose eating a piece of algae every so often. I think looking a bit depressed. Oh, good grief, there's a terrapin there. Be still, my beating heart. The action is becoming slightly overwhelming. I may be not unable to continue presenting shortly. There are another 2 terrapins behind. Phew! It is actually quite a nice little scene that there. You can see how hard it's raining. And I think Taylor is coming back home. I think that they're very worried about the equipment on that car. It's getting very, very wet. So what a wet day it's been. Now, Stefan and I have been doing much research of late, and the research that we've been doing on brain sizes has fascinated us to the point of, well, overwhelmingness. Look how overwhelmed Steph is. Good. And what we discovered is that although human being brain size has probably been driven by sociality, much as it has for the other apes, birds, on the other hand, have a very different situation. Now, this is very interesting. Birds which form monogamous pairs and do not interact with the rest of their species. So, for example, let's take the Wahlberg's eagle. The Wahlberg's eagle, we know, forms a monogamous pair and doesn't live in a flock. So some birds will live in groups but still have a monogamous pair. I think the red-billed buffalo weaver would be a good example of that. But the Wahlberg's eagle doesn't do that, and nor do many crows. So they do form temporary flocks sometimes, but largely they just live on their own in their monogamous pair. And they have a bigger brain than the other birds that do live in flocks. So it's quite the opposite in the birds, and it would seem, therefore, that there is some kind of very complicated interaction going on in a monogamous pair of birds, and although they look simple from the outset or from the outside, inside there's obviously quite a lot of complicated interaction going on, and that has driven the larger brain size of monogamous birds. Isn't that fascinating?
Well, I think that touches on something that we were talking about a little bit earlier in terms of instinct. Are we instinct driven was a question that came through a little bit earlier, and I think the instinct to partner up is probably good here. I mean, if it's an indication of intelligence, why wouldn't it be an instinctual drive for us to want to partner up, I suppose. James has a theory on that, but I think it's all one in the same thing, I think, really. The urge to partner up versus the reason.
Yes. Right. Now, we're going to go to an advertisement break shortly, but we'll continue this discussion, well, leading up to that and then afterwards. But safe to say that, yes, I mean, we do have an urge to partner up, but there is a reason that we call a human being a nominally monogamous species. So in name we're monogamous, but are we monogamous in practice? This great mystery you will find out about after our short break. So don't go anywhere. We will talk about monogamy shortly. Right, for those of you on the internet, of course, that's just the that's our little practice, and thank you for bearing with us during those practices. Let's continue this discussion. What I mean by that, okay, if we look at the chimpanzees and the gorillas are not monogamous. They live in a harem situation where there's an enormous male with very small testicles, and proportionately a gorilla, I'm being serious, a gorilla has minute testicles, and at the other end of the scale we have the bonobos, which are, well, they're like free-loving hippies, basically. They mate with each other, male or female, hither and yon, all over the place. And they have got enormous testicles, much larger than ours, for example. And we sit somewhere in between. So you have a situation where You have gorillas who live in a very strict harem society where there's only one male who mates with the females, and he completely dominates that right. No other male will be tolerated. Then you go across to the other end of the spectrum with the bonobos, where there is absolutely no pair bonding at all. It's everybody loving everybody else all the time. And you can predict a primate's sociality by the size of their testicles. Ours are somewhere in between there, which tells me that I'm being serious, which tells me, or tells us, not just me, that we are nominally monogamous, but that shenanigans do occur. Now, we know, of course, that humans are prone to shenanigans, both male and female. We are prone to shenanigans. And so the amount of shenanigans in a species can be accurately predicted by the volume of their testicles. And that is all I have to say on the matter. I don't know what's wrong with Stef. This is biology. It's not supposed to be an amusing subject. Let's head across to Byron, shenanigans around, find out what's going on at Chitwa Dam. I'm going to pour a glass of cold water over Stef's head.
Oh dear, the weather seems to be affecting James there a little bit. And Stef, by the sounds of things, giggling like a gaggle of geese. Oh, look at that. I'll just come up with that now. Would we call that an alliteration? Yes. Now, I haven't moved. The reason for that is because if I do move, we are going to get very, very wet. I'm not looking forward to that. But there is still a lot going on here. Pratincoles are chasing one another around. Blacksmith lapwing chasing them actually. Two blacksmith lapwing, you can see them on the bank over there. The hippos seem to have settled down a little bit. I wonder if it's because it feels a little bit cold. Now we are still in an advertisement, I believe. I'm not going to try give another advertisement. Oh, look at that. Hippo popping up there. It's wonderful to see them moving around and splashing about and snorting. I can hear Egyptian geese calling in the distance. As I said, there were a lot around here earlier. They seem to have moved off. Our ad break is almost finished. Hello everybody and welcome back from our commercial. And if you are just joining us, just a quick recap of what you might have missed. We've had some lion activity this morning. Taylor had a beautiful male lion who was roaring earlier. They've just returned to the camp because they got very, very wet. It's been raining a lot at the moment. And we are sitting at Chitwa Dam. We've got a pod of hippo behind us that have been very active this morning. We had a crocodile earlier that moved back into the dam. So a lot going on and a lot of bird activity, which was fantastic. And James and Stef are in the tent back at camp at the moment trying to hold down the fort. So everybody's warm and dry except Craig and myself at the moment. We are still out in the bush. Fortunately, we haven't got too wet just yet. But I think if we do move around, we are going to get very wet. There's an Egyptian goose. Oh, now that's interesting. See how it's standing on one leg. I think the Egyptian goose's name is Balan Singh. No, so the reason it's doing that, everyone, is because what it's trying to do is conserve its heat and its warmth. So what they do is they lift their legs up, and a few birds do this. Some of the storks do it too. They lift the leg up and they tuck it in under those feathers, and then they'll stand on one leg so that they actually don't lose much heat through the other leg. So it helps keep them warm. Isn't that interesting though? It's amazing to see. And then see if it does change legs. I'll keep an eye on it. But then, so with having one leg exposed, they lose less heat and they're able to stay a little bit warmer. Interesting to see. Kathy, we were chatting about all of this earlier with the hippo moving out and feeding, and you wanted to know if they all head out together and graze in herds. So Kathy, not necessarily. The most I've seen together is probably about 3 or 4 hippo moving in an area together, and it's usually then the females with the younger hippo. But a lot of the time you'll find hippos splitting off and moving in different areas, and you'll see maybe one grazing by itself or 2 in an area. I haven't seen herds of hippo moving through and grazing in the same area. Like I say, only 3 or 4 usually, but it can happen. It depends where they are. It depends on the availability of food. In winter, when it's very dry and they need to go and look for food, they'll probably move in similar areas because that's the only place they can find food. So again, a few variables that need to be taken into account when they do go out and feed, but generally 1 or 2, and they move off and they split up quite a bit when they are grazing. I might wait a few more minutes here just to see if this drizzle stops a little bit again, and if it does, I might decide to start moving. Otherwise, it's going to be a long morning for us here. I wonder if James will bring me breakfast and coffee. We'll have to ask him. If we end up being stuck out here. James apparently said no, but he must be joking. I mean, surely he would. A nice guy like James. Breakfast, coffee, and service with a smile. All right, now I'm going to give it a few more minutes and then see if I can move away from here and start heading back. But lovely to spend time here at the dam. Now let's head back to James. I'm not sure if he's in the kitchen making breakfast or if he's still in the tent.
The chances of my making breakfast for Byron are so infinitesimally small that I don't believe there to be amoebas small enough to represent how small the chances are of my making breakfast for Byron's sorrow. Now, let's go to the dam cam, where there is an immature version of what you were looking at with him a little bit earlier. That is a kingfisher. No, it's not. It's a fish eagle. Fish eagle. Fish eagle. It is not a kingfisher. A kingfisher looks very dissimilar to that, in that it has a little bit of blue on it. Otherwise, it's almost exactly the same. Oh, follow it, Zumi. There it is, reaching out with its wings. Unfortunately, the zoomies, there we are. Good grief. I suspect he's trying to dry his wings because they've become a little inundated with water. So that's a juvenile fish eagle. Oh, I'm starting to think otherwise.
Have a look at the...
No, just look at his legs.
Have a look at the lift created on the top of its feathers, on top of its wings.
Oh, that's
You
not the
see every now
same
and
one.
It's a little crest that's got there. It's not a warbird.
Well, that's not the same bird.
As
Now, apparently when the one flew away, you could see the other one's wings. I think that is a juvenile marshal.
yes, it's big enough to be one.
That's a
Look how
juvenile
thick the
marshal
legs
eagle.
are.
It's not the same bird as the one that we saw initially.
Yeah.
And as Stef was saying, look at the lift that's created when it was sitting there as it opens its wings.
Yeah, you can actually see the feathers ruffle on the top of the wing as it creates lift, as the air then goes over the top. I don't know how the whole thing works, to be honest. I've looked at many diagrams over the years and can't quite figure out
how lift works.
I know it creates a low pressure and it pushes it up, but it also sucks it from the top. And yeah,
it has
amazing.
to do with the different speed of the air over the top compared to the bottom, but that is physics that we can get if you wish to, but you'll have to tell us before we'll go down that road. Now, Aaron, you had a wonderful question which inspired a discussion in the tent, which we're now going to rehash for you. You say, what is the most interesting symbiotic relationship that we've ever found in biology? And I was trying to find one that I hadn't spoken about extensively, and I couldn't. And then I asked Stef, and he said the following.
I was reading up in a book on ants the other day, and there was this most amazing section on parasites on ants. So we're looking at parasitism as a type of as a relationship between one animal and another, where one animal benefits to the detriment of another organism. And in this particular case, this mite would clip off the last segment of the ant's leg and attach itself quite firmly to the ant's leg and behave exactly the same as that ant's appendage. So that, in other words, the ant would go to sleep one morning or one evening, wake up the next morning, and its leg would be clipped off, and replaced in it would be a prosthesis, which was in actual fact a parasite. And this ant would be able to use this limb without any effect, any negative effect to itself whatsoever, and carry on with its day. But every time it moved, of course, it would be injecting fluid, body fluid, into this mite, who would then live on this ant, utilizing this, the ant's hemolymph as food, and providing a support limb as a payment, as a repayment for the food that it's getting. I just thought that was a very, very interesting form of parasitism. I'm trying to think, James and I, we've been talking about these sort of symbiotic relationships. It's the relationships between organisms since we started guiding. It's one of the first topics that you start to talk about. You have different types. Parasitism is obviously where one organism benefits, the other one is harmed or is even killed. Then you get commensalism, which is where two organisms benefit simultaneously, which would be I suppose like the wildebeest and the zebra, which help each other look for predators, and well, let me just get this right. The wildebeest eat the top of the grass, which reduce the height of the grass to where the zebra, like the shorter grass, the zebra provide a much more observant sentry, and so they both benefit there. Then you get mutualism, which, as far as I remember, is where one benefits, but the other one is neither harmed nor benefits whatsoever. And then there's a whole bunch of things in the middle as well. I think there's a couple that are.
And the most obvious one to talk about here is the oxpecker, and we all learn that it seems to be some kind of symbiotic relationship there, where they both benefit. The animal benefits from having ticks removed from it, ectoparasites. The oxpecker benefits by having a meal. And it would seem that that's not always the case. So it can certainly have that relationship, because it wouldn't exist if it wasn't beneficial in some way, because the oxpecker is big enough, certainly, for it to be chased off any animal that doesn't want it on them. But it can lean towards parasitism. It can move over from symbiosis to parasitism.
One of those blurred ones.
Exactly. Where there's an injury to, say, a buffalo, then the oxpeckers will keep that injury open quite often and maintain it as a kind of weeping sore, so that they can eat out the blood and flesh.
Honey guide and honey badger? Here we hear the bird.
Now,
is
let's go back
at
onto the dam
cam.
camera. I'm just trying to find pictures of these birds. That is the fish eagle. That's the juvenile fish eagle. And you can see there that it's going to have a white belly, or white chest, sorry. Its belly is brown. Now, the second bird we looked at was at least that size, but it had much thicker legs and they were feathered all the way to the base. And I'm pretty sure it was a juvenile martial eagle. I'm trying to find you a picture of one now. Here we go. In fact, I have found one. So once we've had a look there, you can come back here. But there's the juvenile martial eagle. Now, that's the adult, and this is an appalling drawing of them, I have to say, but there's the juvenile, and you'll get a morph all the way in between. So it'll go from that to that, and it'll change. It doesn't happen immediately, so there will be variations between the two. But that's pretty much what we saw. And what I would like you to look at there are the legs. You can see the leg shape is almost exactly the same, a very thick kind of thigh bone going down to thinner but still very powerful tarsals. And that's pretty much what we saw. Very black eye and that sort of slight crest sticking out the back. Now that could have been confused, I suppose, for a pale form Wahlberg's eagle, and the Wahlberg's eagles do live around there, but I think you'll find, if I can find a picture of a pale form Wahlberg's eagle, it's not a very good
That little crest and without the relative size of the tree, it was quite difficult to see how big the bird was from where we were sitting. But it definitely, with the yellow feet and that very dark gaze, when James said juvenile martial, it's without a doubt.
If we look at the Wahlbergs here, you can see, I mean, it's again not a great picture. This book's got a lot to cover in very few pages. There you can see the feathered all the way down to the bottom of the legs, but there isn't the same shape. There isn't that same very obvious sort of powerful thigh almost going down into the powerful tarsals, because the Wahlberg's eagle doesn't eat quite the same things as the martial. Marvelous. Michael, you're wondering about any obvious examples of symbioses in birds of prey.
I only know of the
species, I don't know.
Pygmy falcon and the sociable weaver.
Yes.
That was, I say, the pygmy falcon is an insectivore, but it lives on top of the sociable weaver's nests. And the sociable weavers have the benefit of a raptor-like bird in appearance, obviously keeping away other small predators for them, and they in return provide a good nesting site for the pygmy falcon. But we don't get pygmy falcons or sociable weavers here. I'm busy trying to think in my mind about what else would work.
I don't think we have anything similar here. I mean, a pygmy falcon is exactly as it's described. It is a very small falcon.
Indirectly, perhaps woodpeckers and barbets and bees, and so therefore the honey guide. I suppose indirectly, that would be the indirect example that I would use. The birds that make cavities for nests would provide the perfect nesting conditions for swarms of bees, which in turn then would be preyed upon by the resident honey guides in that particular area. So I would imagine that would be a form. Any hole nesting bird would need a creator of holes, so a cavity digger,
or a barbet.
So there would be a relationship there. Just trying to rack my brains here.
It's more, would we call that symbiotic? No, it's just it's a
conjecture.
Yeah, it's a lucky turn of events that the starlings and the honey guides and things have managed to take up on. But I like that. I don't think there are no sort of symbiotic predatory relationship between predatory birds. Predators in general, I mean, if we look at mammalian predators, they just want to kill each other. They don't really have any need to be around each other. They don't derive anything from each other, except there's a parasitic relationship, I suppose, between jackals, for example, which are scavengers, or hyenas when they're scavenging, or male lions when they're scavenging.
Pale chanting goshawk and honey badger?
Yes. I suppose that's
there's a relationship there. The honey badger is able to dig up colonies of rodents, which the pale chanting goshawk then makes use of as they escape and flee from the danger. I suppose it's quite an interesting topic. I think we'll probably be able to come up with a whole bunch of examples, but whether they're actually documented
Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
And Marianne, I think you were saying my earpiece has gone funny. You're saying, what about hornbills and mongoose? Yes, there definitely seems to be some kind of relationship between hornbills and mongoose. And for me, that's one of the most interesting, because it's between, not only between species, it's between two entirely different orders, entirely different classes of vertebrate, a mammal and a bird. They are so far removed in evolutionary history that the fact that they have any kind of community is astounding to me. Where, I mean, the relationship basically is that the hornbills will provide sort of aerial support and aerial alarms, and the mongoose will provide ground dwelling or terrestrial alarms. They'll dig up bits and pieces that the hornbills can eat, and they travel around in groups. Often yellow-billed hornbills and large troops of dwarf mongoose will do that. And there is a communication going on. And for me, what would be fascinating is to know that is there any non-verbal communication that we don't know about? Are they actually able to communicate with each other in some way that allows this relationship to be beneficial to them both, despite the fact that they're separated by probably millions of years since they both had definitely millions of years since they both had a common ancestor.
Something that's just jumped, it's like an obvious answer would be the go-away bird.
Yes.
So the go-away bird is aptly named because it shouts go away, or it used to shout go away at hunters, which chases away the prey, and the hunters used to be us.
Yeah.
So we've learned to locate leopard and lion from go-away birds. They do a similar thing to them, and we understand that language.
Yes.
It seems to have evolved because of predation.
Yeah. So that might be because we are programmed for language, but I think it is interesting. If we're able to interpret the calls of other animals, then I'm sure other animals can do that, well, not so much around us, but around each other. A monkey's a good example.
Yeah.
A monkey's alarm call, and you will definitely find impala then looking. And an impala alarm call, monkeys know what they're saying. They know that there's trouble.
Yeah.
Right, let's head across to Byron and find out. Oh, he seems to be mobile. Let's find out where he's going.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, I unfortunately seem to have lost my communication with Final Control, so I'm going to wing it a little bit. We are back on Djuma now. Now, I left Chitwa. It's still drizzling quite a bit. We've had to put the covers down because we obviously have all this equipment that we don't want to get wet. So I'm driving very, very slowly at the moment. Still scanning for animals, though, as always. But it is a bit tricky with this cover around us and over the vehicle. Now, I've said this before and in the past, but weather like this, when it is raining and it is a bit windy, it's ideal hunting conditions for animals, for the predators, because it masks their smell and the sound of them stalking prey. So it's actually a wonderful time for animals to hunt. And also, it's much, much cooler. So some of the predators, like leopard and lion, might be a little bit more active. Saw that beautiful male this morning who was calling. So he's probably looking for the other males, or possibly looking for the Nkahuma pride to see if they didn't manage to kill something last night. I'm not too sure where about they are. I didn't hear an update this morning just yet, but I'm sure they will pop up again sometime soon. Now this was the area, I think, not far from where Karula was yesterday. I had a look in this area this morning, but had no sign of her. So I don't know if she moved off, or if they were just hunkered down, hiding somewhere, trying to get out of the rain. And again, as I said, it makes it very difficult. The rains seems to have got a bit harder now, and luckily, as long as I drive slowly, then it doesn't come in through the front, but you can hear it, and it's definitely on the roof. We can hear the rain, I can see it, but it is beautiful though. I love the rain in the bush. It's really, really amazing to have rain. Just brings life, it freshens everything up, cools the temperature down. So we never complain about the rain. And you all know, and those of you who don't, we had a serious drought last year, and the bush is rejuvenated. The animals are all looking healthy again. So we're doing very well with the rain and the water that we have received over the last few months. I'm looking around. I'm going to head towards quarantine, towards the clearings, and just see if there aren't some animals wandering around out in the open. But again, in weather like this, it's not unusual to see animals go and actually look for shelter. They'll hide in thickets, try and stay out of the rain as much as possible. But you might still get movement of some animals around. Let's see, I'm just scanning at the moment. I don't seem to see anything just yet. Alright, it is quite tough with the comms and that being down, but James and Stef are still in the tent, and I'm trying to think how much time we have left, more or less. I'm not sure if I'm going to see you again. Maybe you will, so I'm not going to say goodbye just yet, but let's head back to James in the tent and see what they're up to.
I have managed to find something outside, everybody, and it is on the microscope, but it is blurred. Why is it blurred? I think it's too close. Hang on a second. Sorry, everybody. I'm just trying to sort this out. All right, well, let's have a look there. Now, this might be an arachnid, but I think it is much more likely an insect. And it's minute. It's probably about 1.5 millimeters in length. And it's living on a flower that neither Stef or I can identify. And there you can see it's just scratching itself slightly. Isn't it amazing? I'll take it out the microscope now quickly and then I'll show it to you. Now, we were talking about parasites and mutualisms and symbioses and commensalisms, etc., etc. There it is, there's that tiny little thing over there. And we had a question about whether or not we were ever worried about picking up parasites when we eat grass. I personally am not worried about picking up parasites. I probably should be slightly more worried, not so much with the grass, but, you know, just about everything you eat here or anywhere else in the world is going to be covered in some form of bacterium. And most of the time, your body can cope with that bacteria and has the antibodies to fight them off. And I think probably out here, if you're not used to the area, you might wake up sometimes feeling a little bit bleh, and maybe you've picked something up around here. You don't necessarily get sick from it, but your body is in a constant state of trying to fight off parasites and bacteria. And I suspect quite strongly that when we pick up grasses, yes, definitely there are bits and pieces of bacteria and parasites that we could be ingesting, but none that our bodies cannot cope with.
Jean-Andre seems to be a little bit under the weather from me feeding him a variety of plants that I was picking up yesterday. We did a large number of edible things yesterday, and I managed to put a bunch of things into my mouth as well as into Jean-Andre's yesterday, including the nuts from a marula tree that had passed through the digestive tract of an impala. And I may think that I may have poisoned my friend Jean-Andre, and slightly.
Let's face it, though, Jean-Andre is not difficult to poison, is he?
No, he's quite easy to poison.
Jean-Andre does not have a constitution that might be described as iron. He's got an absolutely iron will when it comes to dealing with his constitution. He's very brave about it, but it does tend to let him down from time to time. And, well, let's just say he spent quite a lot of time having private moments behind thick bushes.
I'll never forget with Genre about a year ago, there was a story with him. We were filming some elephant and he was feeling incredibly nauseous. And we were in the middle of a herd of elephant. The elephant were just on the other side of a termite mound. Genre literally took his face away from the camera, had a quick vomit onto the floor between his feet, and carried on filming without missing a beat while we were speaking into the camera. Never seen anything like it. The level of commitment there is just unbelievable. So while mostly sick, he is definitely still able to function. It
doesn't affect his job at all. Although he basically has the same number of bacteria and diseases in him that you might expect in a medical waste dump, he still manages to do his job, which is much to his credit. Right, let's have a look under the microscope again. I now have created a better picture of this insect. It is an insect. I saw it moving around, but it seems to be a very camera-shy insect. And what kind of insect, I don't know. I suspect it's a beetle. And if I was to get it a little bit closer down from that, I think it's probably a weevil of some sort. Unless it's a... No, I think it is a weevil. It's quite a hairy fellow. But look at his little colours. Aren't they beautiful? Juxtaposed with the light pink. Some might call that salmon even, David, don't you think? Salmon-coloured. I saw a wonderful meme. See how modern I am, David. A meme on social media the other day. And it described, oh dear, my earpiece has fallen out. It described the different ways that men and women describe colour. And for men, you have red and yellow and orange and blue and green. And for women, red is an entire spectrum of 5 or 6 different colours. Crimson, burgundy, various others. And one of those descriptors for pink, of course, was salmon. Let's head across to Byron, who has not got a salmon.
All right, have a look at this, everyone. We found some Impala. They are trying to look for a bit of shelter under some trees. So they're not out in the clearings, but you can see they're kind of standing very close to those bushes. All very, very alert, keeping a close eye out for any potential predators. It looks like a bachelor herd, just a few males. There we go. Look at that rain. It's still raining. Not quite heavily, but it's enough to soak the land and soak the animals. You can see those impala getting very wet there. Almost looks like they're standing facing opposite directions on purpose, doesn't it? I wonder if it's got to do with them keeping an eye out. And I think it does. In keeping an eye out for potential predators, they face different directions, especially in weather like this. That would be my guess. Just to make sure nothing surprises them or ambushes them. Now, unfortunately, I still don't have communication with the FC. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe one of the wires just got wet on through my earpiece. Anyway, we had a wonderful morning. I hope you enjoyed it. Despite the rain, we still got to see a lot of interesting animals. We saw giraffe, we saw the nyala, and then had that wonderful segment at the Chitwa Dam. The hippo, the fish eagle, the crocodiles, the birds that were other birds around. It was really, really fantastic. Hope you all enjoyed it. So from myself, Byron, and Craig on camera, we'll see you all later. I'm going to send you back to James so he can say goodbye. Bye, everyone.
I've got something under the microscope that is amber ginger in colour. Very nice. We're back looking for the stingless bees, everybody, and there was one here. There was one inside. He came out to have a look, decided, oh, sorry, I dropped the skull there. That's disastrous. Let's try once more. And he is in there. In fact, I can just see him coming up the tunnel, but I cannot find a way to make this microscope. Because you see what it's doing is it's exposing for the whiteness of the bone behind. And so when it sees the darkness there, it won't do it. I'm going to try, let's just come back here a second, Kirst. What I'll do, sorry Dave, I'm really making this a hack for you. I'll try and put some external light in and see if that doesn't solve the problem. Oh, yes, this actually may do the job. 1 second. What we're going to do is attach the head torch to the to the giraffe. There we are. Shall I turn this around, David, so you can see what's going on? That would be a bit helpful, wouldn't it? There we go. Right. Just need to change the angle of our lighting setup here. Right. There we go. Right. Now we will put the microscope. Oh dear, I've now pushed a button. The microscope. Put back on there. A bit. I am battling, Stefan. Yes, I am battling. I admit it. I am battling. I am incompetent.
No, I wouldn't say that.
I would. There. Now my earpiece is gone again. Kirsten Starr's actually speaking through a whole lot of yogurt. And that's it. Well, the bee was there. I'm getting irritated with the bee. It does not want to come out and see me. Oh well, stingless bee still getting used to being on TV. Right.
Today has been a very, very funny day in terms of this. This weather seems to be weird. It is blowing, not hard, but it's this fine rain that is being blown around in circles and twirls and...
Sorry, I'm just fixing my earpiece.
James's earpiece has come out. It's not working that nicely today. I think it's also gone on a blink because of the rain that we've been having. But just to update everybody on what's happening this afternoon, we are having a closed rehearsal this afternoon, unfortunately, in preparation for our TV show tomorrow. So we will be on at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. There we go. Which is for you in the US on Sunday evening. Here we will be live in Africa time on
6 o'clock Central African time.
Central Africa time.
If you are in Africa, Canada, Brazil, Russia, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, or Lithuania, you may continue to watch the show for free on the internet. Right. We have a minute left, Stef. What should we do?
I don't quite know. You know what? I've resurrected this book from your library here, and it's given me the need to want to make fire by friction again, which is my perennial hate. And I have a love-hate relationship with trying to twirl sticks together to make a fire. So I think, I don't know. Am I wanting to do that? No.
Not in the next 40 seconds.
No. But as a throw forward to what you can expect.
Yes. Isn't that exciting, everybody? You can watch Stef get blisters on his fingers and on his hands. All right, everyone, that is going to be it from us in the tent today. A huge thank you to David. Thank you, David. Well done. I think a very big thank you to Byron, because Byron has manfully stayed out in the rain, showed you interesting things. So a huge thanks to him and to Craig, and then he couldn't hear Kirsten. But mostly to all of you. It's always much easier doing these rainy drives with you along for the ride. So thank you very much. We'll see you on Monday.